Is there bias in the coverage of Russia's attack on Ukraine? Some reporters and TV commentators seem to be using language different to what they otherwise would when talking about other conflicts around the world, such as in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Palestine. Let's start with an example from CBS anchor Charlie D'Agata, who sparked controversy in one of his live reports out of Ukraine.
This isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
His comments were condemned by many around the world.
Wow. That was you choosing your words carefully? That was the careful version? So what were you going to say if you weren't choosing your words carefully? I just hope the next time this happens, it happens back in the Middle East where it belongs. I was shocked to see how many reporters around the world, by the way, seem to think that it's more of a tragedy when white people have to flee their countries. Because I guess what, the darkies were built for it? I mean, you see how they run in the Olympics, Peter. Clearly God has given them this talent for a reason. I totally agree. I mean, even if this wasn't a war, these people would probably be fleeing their homes for fun. It's just who they are. Back to you guys in the studio.
It shows the very nature of biased reporting in this conflict, a bias clearly exemplified also by this guest who appeared on the BBC.
It's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day with Putin's missiles and his helicopters and his rockets.
A narrative that places more importance on people based on the color of their skin is racist and nothing new. Another journalist, Daniel Hannan, was also denounced for his article, which appeared in The Telegraph, where he wrote, "They seem so like us. That's what makes it so shocking. War is no longer something visited upon impoverished and remote populations. It can happen to anyone." NBC News correspondent Kelly Kobiela also came under fire after she stated this on air.
These are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine. I mean, that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white.
French MP Jean-Louis Bourlanges said during a broadcast that Ukrainian refugees would bring an immigration of great quality, intellectuals. And an anchor on Al Jazeera English described Ukrainians fleeing the conflict like this.
Population. As you're talking to us, Matthew, we're playing in the latest pictures of some of the refugees trying to get on trains or trying to get out of Ukraine. And what's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm loath to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
Al Jazeera has acknowledged that one of its presenters made unfair comparisons between Ukrainians fleeing the war and refugees from the MENA region, and apologized. Meanwhile, on Britain's ITV, a correspondent in Poland said the following.
Now the unthinkable has happened to them. And this is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
And it's not just mainstream English language outlets exposing this bias.
Leaders from the continent have said that they are disturbed at reports that African citizens have been refused crossing to safety over the Polish border. The African Union said that singling out Africans trying to escape war would be shockingly racist and called on all countries to show the same amount of empathy to all victims of the conflict.
We are told that they are not allowing the blacks to get on board. So if you're black and then you go there, you're wasting your time.
Media coverage of the conflict in Ukraine has been kind of off. We have reporters and pundits making some rather awful remarks about the nature of this conflict and these refugees versus, say, conflicts and refugees in the Middle East. First off, Europe has been home to some of the worst wars and worst war crimes in human history. I mean, the Holocaust. So why this surprise that bad things are happening in Europe? And second, when they say, oh, civilized cities, and in another clip, well-dressed people, and this is not the third world, they really mean white people, don't they? The reason they seem to want us to care more about Ukraine, and we should care about Ukraine, but not because they're white Europeans. That shouldn't be the reason we care about Ukraine.
Yeah, no, that's what's so disturbing in all of this. And in fact, not only that, it's trying to make an excuse why the West should get involved and embrace these refugees and help them. Listen, let's be clear. You should encourage and actually help refugees because they are fleeing a war. I don't know if you saw this. There was a op-ed today in the Telegraph. Well, I think we have it. We'll put it up for our viewers to see. This was an op-ed in which the writer, Daniel Hannon, said that these people, the Ukrainians, they're like us. They watch Netflix. They have Instagram accounts. They read uncensored newspaper, and then goes on to say that war is no longer something visited upon impoverished and remote population. Oh no, it's happening to us here in Europe. And to your point, you're absolutely correct. Europe has had some of the worst human rights abuses and atrocities and wars in not just modern history, in all of history.